I really wanted to go to the 2008 Olympics and represent our country. And all of that changed pretty abruptly when I broke my back in a surfing accident. Somebody ran into me at a grocery store and they saw me struggling to walk down the aisles. They saw me not being able to lift the gallon of milk off the shelf because it hurt like hell. And this person approaches me and they're like, "Hey, I'd love to help you with your knee." My knee.
Huh.
This guy's a quack. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Dude, I broke my back. So I, of course, got defensive and shut down. I had such a big problem that I had trained myself to only look for really intense solutions. And here's this guy, he didn't touch me. There was no manual adjustments. He just asked me to lay down in this position and breathe. What a huge waste of time and bullshit this was. And then 45, 50, something 60 minutes later, he asked me to stand up. And I stood up with less pain. And it took me years to understand that he helped downregulate the nervous system. When you have a motion issue, a limitation, a restriction, it is not a matter of if it affects emotion. It is a matter of how it affects emotion.
Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. You guys know me, it's Mimi, and you know who is next to me, my love, Chase.
What's up, everybody? Great to see everybody. And we are really excited for a special guest that we have today, Vinny Crispino from Pain Academy, breaking down a part 1 and part 2 of an episode series that we're going to be doing with him around a topic we just haven't discussed a lot, pain. So welcome, Vinny, to the Medicine Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to chat. I think getting straight into your background and your superhero origin story, so to
Good way
speak.
to put it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in the world, and really how did you get here?
Yeah. So I'll start with what I do now. So I'm a corrective exercise specialist, which means I help people with movement impairments. So whether it's something as simple as muscle imbalance, the right side of the body moves or feels different than the left, to nagging injuries, all the way to full-blown disability and chronic pain. So I'm a movement specialist, but I didn't always care about movement. I was a younger athlete back in my prime, as I would say it. When I was 18 something years old, I was an 8-time All-American Division I collegiate athlete. I had 16 Colorado
Wow.
State records.
What sport?
Swimming.
Oh, cool.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
nothing on land. I was only good in the water. I actually tried playing basketball for a couple years, and my uncle was the basketball coach, and he kindly had at a family dinner asked me to find a different sport. So I just got the giggles when anybody tossed me the ball. So I was just not good on land.
Giggles.
The giggles. I was the only kid giggling on the court.
Amazing.
Maybe that's a different story for a different time. So I was, I was great. I was a great swimmer. It just kind of came natural and easy to me. And because of that, I think I developed this really early on athleticism with the sport. And what turned out to be just like a summer thing turned into a full-time year-long sport. And I got an incredible amount of accolades. I was, I think like most kids, when you start to get really good at something, you think about big picture. I really wanted to go to the 2008 Olympics and represent our country. And that's what I was training for. That was the game plan. I had my entire childhood fixated on that. And, all of that changed pretty abruptly when I broke my back in a surfing accident.
Oh.
So I went from this, what really felt like, and I'm sure most people can relate, in your youth, you just feel invincible. You feel bulletproof. You heal quick if you even get injured in the first place. And you can push the body as hard as you want without it pushing back. It was a clean slate of athleticism. So I didn't care about movement or function or range of motion until I just didn't have any of it. And I went from being this young, strong, capable guy to being able to do anything endurance wise. My specialty was the mile swim. Takes a lot of endurance to be
Wow.
able to do something like that. And then I went from that to hardly being able to stand up for more than a few minutes, without scanning my environment for what is the closest chair I can sit on or a piece of floor that I can lay on. So it was a very abrupt change in a moment as most life-changing injuries are.
Mhm.
And, I think my story from there is probably a lot like most people's, which is, well, when you get pain, what do? You go through the Rolodex. You start off with the doctors, and then you go to the chiropractors and PTs and acupuncturists and massage therapists. You just go through the gambit of what are the modalities that are present. And I was just stuck in that cycle for years. The nature of my injury, it was a T12 fracture, the multiple herniations, the force of the impact from the rock that I landed on when I wiped out surfing. It created an immediate 21-degree shift in my spine. So it was just a mangled mess. And I spent basically the better part of my 20s in a staggering amount of chronic pain, alienating the people that I love, isolating myself. I mean, it really, it got me. It put me in a really dark, hard place.
In this little cup, I have my favorite way to enjoy MushyLove, which is in combination with cold milk. We drink raw cow's milk, and I put it about 8 ounces of milk in with about a scoop and a half of MushyLove. That combination, like the cold version of MushyLove, tastes like liquid graham crackers. Like, I shit you not. And if you don't know yet what MushyLove is, it's our mushroom elixir with 500 milligrams of chaga, which is amazing for gut support. They call it the king of mushrooms. And then 500 milligrams as well of tremella mushroom, which is the beauty mushroom. And she is most known for holding 500 times her weight in water. The more hydrated we are, the more plump and dewy and fresh and young our skin looks.
Plump and dewy.
For MushyLove, go to getmushylove.com and you can use the code MEDICINE for a nice little discount that we only give to our medicine podcast listeners.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable, man. Like, absolutely unbelievable. And something, fortunately, as a former college athlete myself, having never really been through much outside of a couple ankle sprains. And it's just so humbling to understand like just how good we actually feel when things are quote unquote normal. Upon experiencing something as even simple as an ankle sprain, but I can't even imagine even just the debilitating degree that you went through. Pain gets thrown around a lot in the current world that we live in, and it's become something that you can toss a lot of different modalities and ailments at. But even before we get into some of those, approaches that you take to, supporting a healing journey, maybe we can just discuss your perspective, your definition of pain, how you encapsulate pain into something that can be understood through words, but then if there's anything that you would want to share about the psychology of the pain and what you went through during those periods, in case that resonates for listeners who are also maybe going through something or have had gone through something similar.
Yeah, it's a great way to start. So from a high level overview, your body doesn't have the ability to sit down with you and have a conversation with words. Your body communicates to you through various electrical and chemical signals. And it is a wide range of electrical and chemical signals. Some are hormonal, some are, like I said, more electrical. And pain is just one of those ways that your body communicates. It's a sensation. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not right. It's not wrong. It is a way that your body is predisposed and hardwired to be able to communicate to you that something is going on. Again, not right, wrong, good or bad. Where things get really messy and sticky for a lot of people is how we as a culture have almost vilified pain as it's the problem, it's the bad guy. Go take these drugs, let's go eliminate the pain. We're taught that pain is like a warning system. It's the alarm bells that something's seriously wrong. So pain is bad. So when you have it, then things must not be going right in your life or your body. Something seriously catastrophic has failed. And the emotions that we as human beings then attach to pain. We no longer feel pain as a sensation. We feel it as emotions. We feel it as our story. We feel not just the pain today, but probably the history of the pain. Oh God, I've been feeling this for 9 months. Or this is the thing that doesn't let me be intimate with my partner. This is the thing that robs me of joy and it prevents me from connecting with my grandkids, or whatever it is. We tend to not just feel it as a sensation. We make it mean something so profound and deep that makes it very, very, very challenging to then work with, because it's no longer a sensation. It's now a whole host of, it's part of your identity. It's part of how you parent yourself. It's part of your coping mechanisms. There's so much that gets wrapped up in this sensation. And I think a lot of it is natural, and a lot of it is also cultural and societal, and how we've labeled the role that pain should have in our lives.
Yeah, it's like pain, like you said, is not just a signal, but in those cases, it's a story that we keep telling ourselves over and over and over. And it also, I think, can get to the point, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts here, where because that story perpetuates in our mind that we've started that story. Like, we are the creators. We're the creative writers of those stories, of course.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're very creative, but I can see how I hear this all the time in the work that I do, in the education that I do, where if there's pain, people associate that with their body betraying them. Like, my body is not behaving, my body's not doing what I need it to do, rather than being a signal. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to people's relationship with pain. And to be very clear, when I was in the peak of my problem, if, and somebody did try to do this, and I remember how it felt, if anybody would have told me that my relationship with pain is why I'm not healing, I would have flipped them off.
Yeah.
And I would have
Yeah,
said, no, this has nothing to do
Yeah.
with my emotions and my relationship with pain. I remember seeing my broken back on a light up board in the doctor's office on an x-ray and thinking it was purely physical. And so it took me a really long time to understand the emotionality that we have with our pain. The way that we assign value and meaning to it will either set us free from it or keep us trapped in this really nasty, vicious cycle. Most people have assigned pain as problematic. I believe there's a gift in pain. Pain is where answers are. Pain is your body doing its most genius mechanism of communication. And there is a gift in that. There is an answer in that, whether it is emotional pain, and there's maybe something going on, a dynamic within your partnership that's causing you to feel pain. The pain's not the problem. The pain is your body's reaction to a deeper problem. So instead of vilifying the pain for a second, if we can briefly take a step outside of it and look at pain is actually an ally, it is our ingenious warning system to let us know that something needs to be paid attention to. I'm either moving too much, I'm not moving enough. This person doesn't feel safe. This person feels very safe. It is our like internal compass in our GPU system. When it works well and when we have a good relationship with it, it is a highly calibrated navigation tool. When we don't have a good relationship with pain, this is where things get really screwy, because we start making things mean something different than they actually mean. And we start to get really twisted with, can we even trust our body? I love that you put it. It's like our body is waging war on itself. You know, it's failing us. And when you start to have that concept, when your framework is my body's broken, now you're trying to fix it. When people are trying to fight chronic pain, you're fighting yourself. And when you fight your nervous system, you're going to lose 10 out of 10 times. And so again, when this all comes down to like our emotional scaffolding, what is our relationship with pain? And we have a healthy relationship with it. It's not us against our body. It's not us doing self-sabotaging mechanisms. Maybe it's eating not healthy or using substances or not working out, whatever it is. It's us not doing these things because we're angry at ourselves. It's us learning how to gently place attention on pain and learn what is the message here that's here for me, if
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I would love to go back to your story. You know, you're at this seemingly
Yeah.
very low point. You're in this pool of pain, and all of these learnings and these articulations that you've shared around the psychology of pain and this relationship that you have. You know, walk us through what it took to get out of that space that you were in, both from, you know, what doctors were telling you, what approaches you took, what breakthroughs or learning modalities that you ended up embodying, and then ultimately, you know, what led to the development of Pain Academy. Would love to kind of walk out of that journey with you.
There's a couple really big key moments. We'll start off with, I think, the most tangible, which is the physical. So went through a lot of different systems. I spent a lot of money to learn, like most people, kind of what doesn't work. And that's just what you need to do. You've got to spend the money and the time to figure out that, oh, sometimes these modalities that say that they cure pain, they don't really work in the way that we want them to. So I spent years highly and acutely focused on back pain. Rightfully so. That was my story. I broke my back. That's where the pain was. And it wasn't until by just divine intervention, I ran into somebody ran into me at a grocery store, and they saw me struggling to walk down the aisles. They saw me not being able to like lift the gallon of milk off the shelf because it hurt like hell. And this person approaches me and they're like, "Hey, I'd love to help you with your knee." My knee. This guy's a quack. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Dude, I broke my back. So I, of course, got defensive and shut down. And he's like, no. Let me help you. I'm not asking for money. Here's my card. Come see me. I thought it was just another attempt to get business. I threw the card in the back seat of my car, didn't pay any attention to it. Months and months and months go by. I, at this point in my life, with so many failed interventions, I decided to put myself back through school. I decided to accept full accountability and responsibility for this problem. I realized nobody was going to help me fix this. Nobody cared about it more than I did. So I wanted to go back to school to understand, how the hell do our bodies work and how do you put the body together after a life-changing injury? I went to school. I became a personal trainer. I started working at gyms. I surrounded myself in fitness. And I was the trainer who never re-racked weights because it hurt like hell. So I was making a mess every single session. And really long story short, this gym member approaches me and says, "Hey, you look like you're in pain. You should call my guy." And it was the same damn person on that business
No
card
way.
that I ran into the
Wow.
store months later. I'm like, okay, the universe, it's like one of those things where you're asking the universe for a sign and it keeps giving it to you. And you're like, no,
Not
a
that
different
one.
sign. Yeah, not that one.
Different side.
I listened. I went to see this guy. Within 10 minutes, he taught me more about my body than I had accumulated knowledge-wise in 5 years. And it wasn't by looking at what was wrong with my back. It wasn't by listening to my story. He took a picture of me standing and he says, "How come you're not putting any weight on this leg? Why is this knee twisted? What does this have to do with why your back's not healing?" And so it was this really weird zoomed out approach. I'd spent so much money with x-rays and MRIs, zooming in on the problem. And here's this guy with an old school iPhone taking a photo and saying, "How come that looks like this? And I wonder what it would feel like if things were to actually look a little bit more level, if you could stand on both legs again." We did a really simple movement session. It was gentle. It was not intense, which was really annoying because I had such a big problem that I had trained myself to only look for really intense solutions. And here's this guy, he didn't touch me. There was no manual adjustments. There was no manual manipulation, no physical therapy. He just asked me to lay down in this position and breathe. And then he'd maybe gently ask me to move into a different position. What a huge waste of time and bullshit this was. And then like 45, 50, something 60 minutes later, he asked me to stand up. And I stood up with less pain. We didn't do a damn thing. What the hell just happened? And it took me years to understand that he helped downregulate the nervous system. He relaxed muscle. All the tension, all the overactive alarm bells that were just raging through my body, he, in a very gentle way, just by talking to me and guiding me through these really simple positions, just downregulated the nervous system. And I felt better. And I realized I can do this at home. This wasn't an expensive therapy. There was no equipment. I just needed to learn what I had to do on a daily basis. And this is what eventually moved me into Pain Academy, which is what are the things that people can do by themselves every day instead of just waiting idly for the next appointment, instead of putting your therapy and healing in somebody else's hands? What are the tools and the positions and the gentle mechanisms that one person can do on a daily basis to restore their soft tissue? And this is what launched me into the work of what I do now as a corrective exercise specialist. So that was the physical realm that pushed me to start Pain Academy. I had a lot of the physical tools. Things were like kind of feeling better, but this was still like 5 to 10 years after I broke my back. My fractures healed, my herniations healed, and I still felt like shit. I still was anticipating pain when I would bend forward. I was still living very small. I was still alienating people close to me, self-isolating. Things still weren't good. I didn't have the emotional capacity that I needed to heal this problem. And that wasn't clear to me until I was in a massage. And it was a regular massage appointment. Nothing seemed extraordinary until this woman put her hands on my lower back. And I didn't tell her my life story, but she felt this mangled mess. I mean, it was like radiating heat. The muscular imbalance was still very severe. And as she puts her hand over my back, I just flinch. She's like, okay, we're going to try something. I'm going to put my hand on your back, and I just want you to repeat after me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. God, here we go again. This sounds stupid, but all right. My people pleasing was activated and I wasn't going to tell her no. So I went with it. And I'm repeating these 4 phrases. And I realize that as she's asked me to say, I love you, I don't know who I was saying that to, because the truth was I didn't love myself. I was, even though I had found all of these great physical tools and mechanisms, I was still barreling my way through pain. I was still forcing and using brute power to try to solve these physical problems. I was yanking these tight muscles. I was treating my body so poorly because I was mad that it got hurt. I was mad that it was holding me back. And whenever I did my exercises, that was the emotion that I brought towards every single thing that I was doing. Whether it was calm, gentle, or simple, I brought force and power and hate and loathing energy to it. And so this is the next milestone of Pain Academy, because the exercises that didn't work for me became the exercises that set me free and helped me heal my body and have allowed me to now go run ultra marathons. And the difference was this: it was my mind, it was my heart, it was how I was parenting myself and coaching myself through pain and discomfort, my relationship with pain. This all showed up in every exercise. And once I understood what my emotions had to do, it became so clear how emotions are half of the problem and physicality is half of the problem. And until those are simultaneously addressed, it's like playing an instrument only half played. You just don't get the full experience of it.
Can you share with us a little bit, because I completely am aligned with you and understand this now in my life, and how emotional traumas, emotional, even just intensity, right? Like over masculinity or hyper vigilance, having been an athlete, you compartmentalize and you almost like store these little pockets of emotion and spots in your body physically. And it seems like that's just a psychological component, but it does manifest into, like, especially for men, like lower back pain. Can you, to the best of your ability, describe how that's possible, right? Like, if there's someone out there who's like, Jesus, this is the most woo-woo thing I've ever heard, which our listeners are not going to actually think that. But like,
we love the woo.
Speak to me 10 years ago where I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Emotions stored in our body? How does that even work? What are emotions? How does that, find itself located in a muscle or a particular physical location in the body?
Yeah. So if there's a couple ways we can enter this conversation, let's try this. And if it doesn't make sense, we'll try something different. Without any acting or coaching training, if you take 1,000 people and you put them in an auditorium and you were to tell all 1,000 of these people at the same time, we're going to go through an acting exercise. You're going to be a king or you're going to be a queen. Without any training, the majority of people, you're going to see this first. They're going to change their body position. They're going to stand a little taller. They're going to pull their shoulders back. Nobody's going to slouch over in cowardice. You're going to assume the emotional confidence of that role you're playing. If we tell 1,000 people, show me what, now we're going to play a depressed, a prisoner, somebody like that. You are going to see everybody's body language change and become defeated. The shoulders are going to slouch. You're going to cave inward and collapse on yourself. We are going to see a body language change first, and then we're probably going to see character changes in the way that we inflect our voice, so on and so forth. And so I say this because you are constantly using your body to communicate emotions. It's body language. And we don't have to be, highly trained people in the FBI to be trained in body language. We are all innately built with this ability to scan and monitor our environment around us. If you've ever been in a relationship, sometimes you don't even need to ask how that person's feeling. You already know how they're feeling by the way they're moving. And maybe you're not capable of saying exactly what it is that you're looking at to identify that, but you're constantly assessing somebody's body language to determine what is their mental and emotional state. We do this mostly subconsciously, some of us consciously if you're trained in it, all the time. So our body is constantly used as a vehicle of emotional expression for everybody. Now, does that make sense before I move on with that?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Okay. So we use our body as a vehicle of emotional expression. Now, what about the people like me? My father was raised, born in the 1940s in Bronx, very stereotypical, classic Italian-American man. Emotions are bad. Emotions are vulnerable. You're weak. Don't cry. Don't share with the world how you feel. Nobody cares. Keep it to yourself. What kind of emotional and physical expression is that body going to have when you are trained to not show your hand? He was also a poker player, gambling problems, all that stuff. He learned how to mask his emotions. You couldn't read this man if he was happy or sad.
Yeah.
I've only seen him cry once in his life.
His body was probably very rigid and stiff.
Beyond. There is no massage therapist in the world that would crack this code of this man. So now we have our bodies are vehicles for emotional expression, but now we have this, you're not safe to share your emotions and nobody cares. So let me now override that and be a little stoic. Well, that doesn't fix your emotional expression. That just means you learned how to be tonic and how to be stressed in your emotional pensive. Things are bottled up and held up. No wonder why we're so rigid and damn tight, but we're really good at skillfully masking emotions. This all has to do with energy and the way that we're feeling. And I know energy work, it's woo-woo, but the next time you feel an emotion, if you can have the wherewithal, pause for a moment. What is happening with your breath right now? Is it deep and full, or is it pensive? Is it tight? Is it shallow? And is it in the neck and the chest? Almost like a smoker would inhale through their mouth, right? With pursed lips. Is it tense? What is happening with your muscular system? Is that left hip the one that's problematic and you're feeling anxious? Is that hip why are you sitting on that hip more than the other hip? What is happening on a physiological level when you as a human being are experiencing emotions? And if you can take a moment in the middle of an emotion to have the awareness of where do you feel it, you start to bridge this, for many people, what is a big gap between emotions that are only felt in the brain but stored in the body. And that's the gap that needs to be bridged. And it can be done by just a very delicate amount of awareness. The next time you feel an emotion, where do you feel it in your body? What does that feel like?
Yeah,
It's there.
I think that's such a wonderful articulation of something that's subconscious, like you said, it's subconscious in most of us. We don't even think about these things, but it is also laden within the language of our society. When you talk about, you break up with someone, you have heartache, you have a broken heart, and you do feel this like weight on your chest. You're not feeling it in your feet. You're not really feeling it in your head. It's like this weight right here. And, same thing with like your intuition. Like, I don't know, my gut's telling me this. Like it's from like the core of you. So it's also laden within our language, I think. And we all have these feelings throughout life. And it's archetype. This is the fabric of reality. We talk about archetype all the time, but when you're talking about a king or a queen, yes, it's like there is a certain archetype that we all subscribe to, whether we know it or not, like it or not. We all are woven within this fabric of reality, which is all archetype. So it makes sense to me that if you're thinking about emotions as archetypes, that they would also be woven into us, into our, very the tissues and structures of our body.
Yeah, and the where things get a little tricky and really challenging is, so imagine a healthy body where we can get in and out of all these archetypes. We can go be that king or queen. We can also be a sad person. We can be angry. We can go through that full spectrum of emotional expression because our body is the vehicle that allows us to express these things. But what happens when the body becomes stuck? What happens when you've got a flexion contraction? Might be more noticeable rounded shoulders. There's no such thing as a bad posture. Any position your body can get into is a position it was designed to get into. The problem becomes when you can't get out of that. For the people who've got that rounded, let's say kyphosis, mid-back rounded, almost that depressed state. When that becomes your baseline, and now your body is literally held in this sad or depressed state because the soft tissue structures have failed, how hard is it to experience this profound confidence and joy because now the physical vehicle is actually encasing the emotion? Your emotions and motion, those words sound very similar because they're almost the same thing. It's a bidirectional relationship. And when you've got a emotional issue, it is going to present itself with a motion issue. And conversely, when you have a motion issue, a limitation, a restriction, it is not a matter of if it affects emotion. It is a matter of how it affects emotion and which emotions it's actually affecting. It is wildly, intimately connected.
Man, and what I'm thinking about is like, you obviously mentioned your childhood too, and the impact of your father. We've all got these, childhood programs that are running, unconsciously in our being. So there's this level of emotional compartmentalization that we're just walking into life with, even if we're physically healthy, right? Then you roll into something like a traumatic injury like yourself, or what many find in their lives, illnesses. Surely for us, it was, adrenal exhaustion and some of these other unfortunate events that took place in our late 20s. And you have some physical trauma as well. And then it's like the new identity of being this sick person or this person who's in pain. And so by the time you step into, like, I don't know, for us, it was like our early 30s. We're like, okay, where do we start? Like, where do we start pulling back the layers? Because it is quite, stacked upon each other. And maybe if you could talk a little bit about how that played out in your relationships and what that journey of, even finding some level of reprieve through some physical changes and some of the work that you did, but still having a while to go as it pertained to the emotional untangling. Maybe walk us through a little bit how that impacted the relationships in your life, of course, with yourself, but with, whether that be romantic partners or whether that be family members or friends.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional entanglement, we all get this software as kids, and my software was, don't show weakness, don't be vulnerable, don't talk about emotions. You're a weak man if you do. So now all of a sudden, I'm a man with a chronic, debilitating, life-changing back injury well, I can't talk about my emotions. It's not good to express them. God forbid I was vulnerable and asked for help. It 10x'd how long I was in pain for, man, because I didn't have the skill set, nor did I have the ability to actually accept or receive help. And I was so worried about people's image of being this broken, incapable man that it was far easier for me to push people away and self-isolate because I could control my own image by myself than to be out there in the world and be vulnerable and exposed. So every core relationship in my life suffered because of my software that I had. My relationship with pain was toxic. And instead of looking at what community I had as a support system to help me cope and get through these times, I was very sick and twisted, and my support system's going to judge me.
Mm.
And I'm a burden to these people. And I felt unworthy of love as it was before the injury. And that came from living in a household with parents who both struggled with addiction. I felt unworthy of love while I was capable, while I had a wall of accolades. Now I'm a guy who can't even like take a shower and can't even groom myself, let alone control or help my physical appearance. That guy's worthy of love? Hell no. Push it out. Push it out, push it away. And I self-isolated. I turned to the, you know, coping mechanisms. Those weren't once talked about in the first 5 years I was in chronic pain. And it's no fault of the Western medical system. I wasn't going to my doctor or a back specialist to talk about coping mechanisms. I was going there to fix pain. Yet my coping mechanisms, substance abuse, that stuff was raging in the background. And not once was it ever talked about as how is that fueling this problem? So my my path, my very unhealthy relationship with pain, my childhood issues, being unworthy of love, the very real toxic masculinity of be a man, suck it up, and just get through it. Nobody cares. Me feeling like an extreme burden in other people's lives. How could there be a foundation of love and intimacy and care and living with an open heart? I got pissed and I drowned the world out.
Mm.
Really long time.
I think intimacy is like a critical nutrient just for life and for sanity in some way, shape, or form, whether that be with friends or romantic partner, certainly yourself, but even people who can't get there with themselves or are looking for it in friends, family, lovers, whatever. And if you're not able to be like authentically vulnerable from time to time, you're probably not feeling any level of real intimacy in your life. And I mean, I can imagine how alone how
Yeah.
alone did you feel? And were you aware at the time that you sort of were putting yourself in a prison, or did it feel like this is happening to me and the world is happening to me? Or were you aware of like, I'm kind of doing this to myself?
Well, that was the really hard part is for the first half. And again, I want to go back to the guy who didn't think emotions had anything to do with this, who didn't understand self-parenting or coping mechanisms. That guy, this problem happened to him. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't creating it all. I had no responsibility in this. And that's what had to shift. And so I didn't understand that emotions and coping mechanisms, all of these things, this was my doing. This is how I was perpetuating the problem. And I think it took me a couple years and tens of thousands of dollars to figure out that, swiping a credit card and paying somebody else to have them fix the problem, I wasn't participating in my own rescue. Not only was I not participating in my own rescue, did not build a life that would support my recovery. I was actually making my recovery damn near impossible by shutting everything out and like literally sabotaging myself every single day. And I was blind to it. It's like a blind spot. Everybody has them and you don't know them until they're shown to you by a beautiful other human being. Oh my God, my blind spots were huge because
Yeah.
this thing happened to me. I didn't choose it.
Yeah.
So I played no role in this, but I did.
Take us through a little bit of the speaking of archetype or demographic, the types of people that you end up working with, the types of people that Pain Academy is really supportive of, and whether that be individuals like yourself who've been through maybe former athletes, traumatic injury, but are there sort of like chronic nagging injuries as well? Like, what can Pain Academy address? Is it for anybody and everybody? Maybe walk us through a little bit about who may be kind of the perfect case for taking something like your courses.
Yeah, it's always a hard question because this program is for everybody in the sense that we all have a lot in common. We've got ankles, knees, hips, pelvis, spine, shoulders, and there's certain optimal functions that all of these joints should have. And my program specializes on restoring these joints. So I can safely say with a high level of confidence that this program can help a human body, which makes it highly available and accessible for everybody. But where this gets niche is you have to be willing to do the work. I'm not going to do it for you. Pain Academy is for people who are ready and willing to participate fully in their recovery, not passively wait, not idly wait. These are for people who want to learn how to show up daily. And that might mean something different every day. I'm not talking like full force, high energy every day. I'm talking about you wanting to learn how to take care of this beautiful, amazing physical vessel that you are attached to for your life and how to understand how it works a little better. Not on a deep scientific level, though I have that for people who want it, but people who want to know basic information. How do I move better? What are movement patterns? How can I get the hips and the shoulders to support each other more? How can I improve my mobility and strength and stability? It's for people who want to have a better experience with their body, who want their body to support them more, who want to keep doing the things that they love as long as they love doing them. That's who this is for.
Awesome. Is there an order of operations as far as like, maybe take us through kind of the sequencing, a table of contents, if you will, as to how you address this and where do people start?
Yeah. So step one is I can't put you to work right away. If I put you to work, you're going to use the dysfunctions and the compensations. Yep. You're going to use the problem that is already existing to do that job. So step one is down regulating, like I shared what happened on my first session. It's calming down the nervous system. It's beginning to get the nerves and the muscles to work better on both sides of the body. Once we can calm down the nervous system, this is what takes the edge off for those people in chronic pain, or this is for those who are not in chronic pain. It helps them feel a little bit more grounded, like they've got better access to their body. Once that is what I call like earning people's listening. It's earning their attention. Once they feel that nervous system change, then we can start to get to work. And I sprinkle in mindset stuff. So I also have a meditation program. Like I said, we can't really change the body unless we're also changing our relationship with the body. So I give people the tools to first down-regulate their system and then slowly and gently start to restore function, joint by joint, body part by body part. And as I'm teaching people these really basic, simple things, and it's almost annoying how simple they are because we love to make things complicated and it's got to be really, needle in the haystack complex if it's going to work. It doesn't need to be. It's simple. Making complex problems simple while reframing their relationship with pain is attacking this problem from two very important angles simultaneously. And once joints start to move a little bit better, like once range of motion is restored, then it's just about what any good training program does, is it just makes things a little harder over time. And it progresses the intensity and the stimulus, and it prepares your body for more real world stuff. It's a year-long program. This is not a 2-week crash course. It is a year-long system that adapts to your body based on what helps you move and feel better. It's heavy. And I lead with that because I don't want to scare people away. I think people are looking for depth, and this is depth.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't know where this quote comes from, but I remind myself and others this all the time where it's like the body heals sort of in the same manner where it, gets sick. It's like a little bit every day over time. It's not
Yeah.
like just overnight you get sick or overnight you get injured or overnight the pain in your situation, I guess, like with an injury like that. But I think it's a good reminder for all of us, whatever we're healing, it's like a little bit every day over time, and putting that energy towards the healing process. I think it deserves reverence and time and energy. And unfortunately, our society a lot of times looks for quick fixes and popping a pill.
Yeah. Can you go into what you see as where the space, where therapy goes wrong, and what people are maybe wasting their time and money on?
If I could go back and do it all again, I would change my North Star. So my North Star being in pain and having problems with my body, my North Star, the thing that guided me was, how do I get out of it? Rightfully so. That's very normal, especially when you feel something you don't want to. Your first, most immediate motivating question is, how do I get out of this? The question I wished I would have asked is, how can I learn to stay out of it long term? If that would have been my North Star, I would have immediately shifted through all the BS. I don't care about getting out of pain in 2 weeks. I care about staying out of pain for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So where are the systems? Where are the people teaching techniques and strategies that I can manage this problem on my own? In my first couple of years, I was looking for the gurus. I was looking for the people who charge an exorbitant amount of money to do things to me because my North Star was, just get me out of this problem right now. So I think where most people go wrong and most modalities go wrong is their messaging and their communication. Sure, it can be about results and that happening quickly, but it also has to be communicated that there's a process to this, and that process takes time. And what I'm about to say is not to minimize people's experience. It's actually not that difficult to get out of pain. Lay on your back, put your legs over a couch or a chair. Probably going to feel a lot better because you have a lot of support in that position. You can do things to the body to mitigate pain, but what everybody wants is to not mitigate pain. Everybody wants to stay pain-free, and that requires an entirely different solution and approach. If people pull one thing from me today, I want it to be this. There are 2 buckets of therapy categories, 2 big buckets. There's passive and there's active. Think about passive therapy as going to like a stretch lab and a trainer stretching you, a massage therapist doing the work on your muscles for you, chiropractor moving the bones for you. Passive therapy can be helpful. It can be really nice. It can be a great tool to use in your tool belt. Not hating on passive therapy at all. But then there's active therapy. Active therapy is you getting your nerves to communicate to your muscles to get your joints to move. I'm talking about the work it takes for your body to restore itself. We cannot just ditch active therapy. Passive therapy is not the vehicle to get you there long term by yourself. It can be helpful short term. There's many great passive therapies out there that could probably create a quick nervous system change. But most people will go to appointments and the clock starts ticking with how long it's going to be until they feel exactly the same way, because they're missing the active therapy participation. So if I could give one piece of advice, it's to look for both. Cool. Get your passive people. I love them. They support my work and I support their work. And it still needs you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do this without you. And the moment you realize that, your perception of what you're looking for and what you're paying for will change quite profoundly.
Yeah, that's really,
Mhm.
really good.
I would love to hear if you I know we only have a few minutes left here in part 1 of our series, but I would love if you could share maybe you know, a testimonial or a story that comes to mind of maybe a client or a user of your programs that really sticks out in your mind to anchor this as we close out.
Mhm. You know, one of my favorite testimonials to talk about, she's actually featured on my social media page and most of my sales pages and websites. Her name's Sam, and she's this amazing woman. She joined my program, followed it to a T every single day for a year, and didn't get any better. Everything. She did everything that I asked. She joined because she had chronic back pain, very significant scoliosis, borderline needing a very invasive life-altering surgery, which is fusion. You go in there and you literally fuse the spine so it doesn't move. That's why she joined my program, was a last-ditch effort to see if she can avoid that. A year later, no meaningful change in any of her photos or functions. She reached out expressing frustration. Then I've done everything you've asked. Nothing's changed. And I said, that's a little weird. Let's connect. And we hopped online for a Zoom session. I didn't do anything different. I didn't give her new exercises or a new routine. I asked her to show me what she was doing. She did her routine as she has done for a year, this routine that was built for her. And as I'm watching her do this, I'm noticing like she's wincing her face. I'm like, what are you thinking about right now? And she's like, oh, it's this pain and it's what I'm running into. And I'm just trying to like get my hip to move. I said, okay, I want you to try half as hard as you think you should. Take a deep breath, try half as hard as you think you should. And instead of finding that edge of discomfort and barreling your way through it, I don't even want you to go close to it. And she was confused. She did that. And we had that principle for every exercise. Sam, go half as hard as you think you should. Whatever intensity, relationship with intensity you have, check it at the door. Let's find the easiest way to do this. It was an uneventful thing. It was not hard. It was quite easy for her. She stood up and I can't even put into words the expression on her face. I mean, it was borderline joy and tears.
Mhm.
She stood up and felt so much better, doing the same thing she did every single day for a year. Why was this any different? Because she wasn't fighting her body. And why it's my favorite case study is because we feel how we train. And if you train yourself to be in discomfort, why do you think you're going to move without discomfort?
Mm.
What was so important about this session for her was she showed her body that movement can be safe again, that she doesn't need to go to extremes. She can soften her approach. And instead of making something hard and painful and she runs into the same problem she's here to fix, she found this like layer underneath it where movement actually felt safe and available. She felt home in her body again. No wonder why she stood up feeling better.
Mm.
That one session was the accumulation of 10 years of my story,
Mhm.
fighting, and then doing the same thing with a different approach. And it was profound, the changes that happened in her. And her case study is, like I said, plastered over all of my accounts because it is visually so empowering to see that significant of a change and to know it was mental. And she was going to school in Australia for psychology, and she was just about to start her thesis to get her master's. And that session changed her entire trajectory with what she wanted to do because she felt instantaneously the power of the mind-body connection. And she now is specializing to help women in chronic pain.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, talk about a ripple effect. And
Ripple.
you were able to help her in that moment. Obviously, you have a great understanding of movement and everything, but like you were her. You understood exactly where she was coming from because you had done that for a decade yourself. And just like, wow, man, props to you and your work and being able to interpret her difficulty in that moment and being able to, like, on the spot. Wow.
Okay. So we heard your beautiful story. So some of the incredible breakthroughs that you were able to experience in your life and apply to Pain Academy and heal so many people. We heard some beautiful testimonials from some of your clients. And so now we're going to get into a little more of the specifics, starting off with the fact that our Mimi has had a history of some chronic knee pain, some ACL tears. And so maybe I'll leave it to you, Vinny, knowing a little bit about that. What questions would you ask her and where would you start?
Okay, so this is going to be a conversation, and even though Mimi and I are going to get into a little bit more about what's going on with her knee, everybody listening, just replace knee with what you're experiencing, whether it's back pain, ankle pain, shoulder issues, neck. There are so many conditions and issues out there that come when we lose basic function. So I want you to use this conversation so interchangeably and just literally insert your issue, diagnosis, or condition whenever we talk about Mimi's knee. So the first thing that we have to understand is Mimi has this issue with her knee, which I would love just a quick backstory on it. But we also need to understand that Mimi is more than just a knee. She has hips and ankles and a spine and pelvis and shoulders. There's a entire body attached to the knee. Now, I'm sure whenever there's a specific issue that shows up in somebody's life, like for Mimi, we've got this kind of chronic or recurring, very consistent problem with the knee that's been around for a long time. There are people out there that specialize in the knee, and there are people that have made their entire life's work about the knee. And those experts can be really helpful. But like most people find, when we go find these really hyper-specific niche specialists, there can be some help there. But oftentimes, maybe the problem just persists. Or maybe those experts can turn down the problem or the pain a little bit, but we still don't feel capable of doing whatever it is that we want. We still feel heavily restricted. And so what I want to do is I want to first trust that if you have an issue, you've probably seen somebody about it that can specialize in it. So now we're going to take the conversation to what I am, which is a specialist in how the entire body moves. So first of all, Mimi, catch me up again. Give me the basics of what's been happening with this knee, and then I'm going to tie it back into the entire body.
The quick and dirty of the injury was kind of back-to-back in high school, back-to-back ACL tears in sports. I had reconstructive surgery both times. The first time was 3/4 of my hamstring that they pulled out. And then the second time was a cadaver ACL. So I have someone else's ACL in there, and I've had enough little chips away, instability moments where in the last, I would say 4 to 5 years, where I don't know what's going on in there now. I sort of refuse to have surgery. So I've been avoiding an MRI, the doctor altogether, because I can live with it. It's not painful to the point where I can't walk, where I can't lift. It's just that it feels very weak. And so I baby it. I'm always thinking about what position is my knee in so that it doesn't do this thing, which I'm going to get to. About 3 years ago, I had to hop off a bike really in a strange way. And I heard something click in my knee and felt something click in my knee. And it was like something like popped out of place. And then when I straightened my knee, it popped back in. I was like, it was really painful. I was like, what the heck was that? But I went on with my day and I could walk and do these things. It just feels very weak. So I don't know. There's some junk in the trunk going on in there. I don't know. There's probably a tear somewhere.
And it feels like an east to west, right? It's like a lateral shift, or is it?
It's more like it feels like this is happening.
Like a shearing.
Yeah. And then when I bend it really slow, like if you were to put your ear close to it, you could hear some like gravelly noises, which is super
Mhm.
cute.
Yummy.
Chase hates it.
It'll shake the bed. Like when the knee pops out, it'll actually shake the bed. It's
Yeah,
pretty wild.
it's frightening, honestly.
So
Like,
so this is so you can live with it, but your partner's sleep cycle
Yeah.
is being massively
I
disrupted.
It's
just,
really about me.
I just, yeah, I can live the level of pain I can live with. I just hope it doesn't get to a point where it's something, I can't get it back into place someday,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
whatever. So, that's kind of where I stand today, but it doesn't inhibit me from walking, from water skiing, from lifting, deadlifting, squatting, all of that. I'm just extremely, I just baby it a lot. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the quick and dirty of it.
Okay. That was a great recap, by the way. So it doesn't, and by the way, this is where most people emotionally sit, which is they kind of have these things. They learn to just live with it, and we get really good at creating parameters around it. And for some people, that's no problem. But for other people, and probably, in fact, many people listening to this, it's really a matter of like not being able to go run as hard as they want. Can they run? Sure. But can they get the miles in that they want? Can they deadlift? Sure. But can they lift the weight that they want? There's always this kind of one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake because of
Hmm.
this like caution or anticipation of stuff going on. And the really fascinating thing is your body is brilliant. So if you go to touch a hot stove, your body immediately reflexively pulls that away before that pain signal, before the, oh, this is hot conversation enters your brain, your nervous system is already making decisions for you autonomously. This is our protective mechanism. And this sense of babying, always being aware, always being cautious, this is actually your nervous system employing its brilliant mechanisms of really kind of throttling your performance so nothing kind of funky happens. Um, do you notice that there is limitation in range of motion? Like, yeah, as long as you keep your squats or deadlifts in the top half of range of motion, things are cool. But that bottom range is where things get a little funky. Do you notice any kind of restriction like that?
Yeah, for sure. Mostly with unilateral movements. Like if I were to do a deep side lunge on my left side, which is it's my left knee that's, problematic. If I were to do a deep side lunge, I definitely could not use the same weight that I can use on my right side. Not because I'm babying, but because I literally just can't. And so I tend to not do those as much.
Mhm.
If I it's mostly, so in short, it's mostly unilateral that I notice it. There's probably something with the squat and the deadlift that maybe I'm just not picking up on, but definitely I notice it with unilateral.
And now let's get into more of the rest of your body part of this problem. So we know we have this recurring or kind of long-standing knee issue. It feels like it needs to be babied. It's maybe a little unstable. The movement feels a little off and funky. There's some protective mechanisms going on here. Um, that's called a dysfunction. Something's not working the way that we want it to work or the way that it should work. So problem number one, dysfunction in the left knee. Problem number two, and this is the problem that there is very little conversation about. This is a problem that is very minimally explored, yet creates a whole host of issues, which is compensation. How is Mimi catering to this problem? Do you shift your weight a little bit more into the right leg when we squat? When we walk, do we spend a little bit more time with the right leg on the ground? Are we having an even stride, or is this little limp starting to kind of develop? The question is not if there's compensation. The question is how much is there and what does that feel like? So now the next question is, talk to me about the rest of your body, movement, training. Do you notice that the right side is a little achy? Do you notice problems in the left shoulder, in the left ankle, in the left hip? What else do you notice is going on with your body?
Yeah, I've also had left foot pain, chronic pain, for the last probably 3.5 years. I noticed it like right after COVID, when we started playing hella pickleball. And I just thought, oh, I'm just, I'm using the wrong shoes, or I just went a little too hard. And so I eased off of pickleball, and then the pain didn't go away. And so it's definitely, I have like an inflammatory spot on the lateral edge of my left foot. And I do notice that sometimes the pain can show up in other areas, like sometimes randomly my toe, sometimes randomly my right Achilles, like around my Achilles area will just randomly be very swollen and tender, sore, to the point where there's been days where I get out of bed and I'm like, I can barely walk.
The Achilles on your right leg? Or
Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay.
On the right. Yeah.
It's not just the left.
No. So the pain sort of transfers, and there's no like event that I could point to and say, oh, well, it's just like really, it seems to be random. Now, in that, I've definitely noticed that with these little inflammatory pain points, my diet does have a huge impact on how these flare up. So I've completely, gone as gluten-free as I can, and that seems to help. I also don't use any inflammatory oils or anything like that. I eat mostly whole foods, all that jazz. So that really does help, but it will still fire up from time to time, seemingly randomly. So mostly left foot, right Achilles. I don't really feel any pain in my shoulder area or my hip. I don't think I've ever complained about that. It's mostly just the foot.
Okay, great. So now we're starting to talk about a little bit more of the rest of the body. What I think would be really helpful, not only just for you, but for everybody listening, is let's actually walk through auditorily a preliminary assessment. And this is so simple. We don't need to make a complicated issue more complicated. In fact, that's where things get really messy. So I've found that the entry point, step one for people is, let's quickly just do an assessment to understand what is really happening in Mimi's body when she's doing basic things like standing. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and scoot your chair to the side, and I want you to stand up. Everybody listening to this podcast, I want you to take your shoes off, take your socks off, and just stand up comfortably wherever you're at. And I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. I'm going to do this. I am going to join you. I'm going to do it with you. Okay, so the first thing, awesome. We got both of you doing this. All right, so the first thing I want you to do is, as you're standing here, just kind of loosen up, just kind of like let your arms kind of swing, lift your legs up, just march up and down in place, just kind of loosen up. And then I want you to relax. Let your feet rest in whatever position feels comfortable for you. Now, the first thing I want you and everybody to do listening is to visually just look down at your feet. And the first thing that we're looking for is, are both feet naturally and comfortably pointed forwards? Or does it look like one foot is pointed out more than the other? Maybe both feet are pointed out. For some people, one foot might be pointed in. So Mimi, why don't you walk me through what you see?
They look pretty even. The right might be a little just like maybe 5 degrees pointed out more so than my left, but they look pretty even.
Great. And then the next thing is, are both feet in line with each other? Or does one foot look like it's kind of staggered, maybe stepping in front of the other?
They look even.
Excellent. Now, the first thing we're doing is just visual look at the foot position, because if your feet are straight, chances are the ankle moves forward. Chances are the knee doesn't have a lot of rotation in it, nor does the hips. So if the feet are straight, that's a really good start to understanding how you're just literally doing nothing right now. You're just standing upright. Now, let's go a little bit more introspective here. Do you feel an equal weight distribution on both feet? Meaning you're 50-50, or does it feel maybe 60-40 or 70-30? Maybe there's more weight on one foot compared to the other.
Today my foot feels really good. There's no pain, so I can tell that it's not hard for me to stand evenly.
Great.
But I do notice on days where it's painful, I will have, most of my weight for sure, probably 75-25 on my right.
Interesting. And the days where the right Achilles is painful or the day where the left knee is painful?
Where the left foot is painful, I will definitely baby it. Yeah, for sure.
So now we can start to understand that when the left foot doesn't feel good, Mimi shifts her body weight over to the leg that does, quote unquote, work better. And now we can start to understand why that right Achilles might just start to get a little aggravated, because there's nothing wrong with the Achilles. We're just using it significantly more, just even standing to resist that downward pull. Let's keep the scan going. So now scan your body from head to toe here. Is there a joint, an area, or a muscle that you feel is just working a little harder than the other? Maybe it's a right calf, maybe a left hamstring, right hip, left lower back, maybe the right neck. Or does it feel like there's this really nice, even distribution where all these muscles and joints are just all working together to support you upright? What kind of answer do you have to that question?
I definitely feel more tightness in my right leg and hamstring. If you remember, my first surgery took, like, I think 2/3 or something of my left hamstring as the tendon in my surgery. And so I know my right leg, buttocks, quad, everything compensates for the left. Because I literally just don't have that muscle, that tendon. So right now the right glute feels a little tight, a little crampy, more so than the left.
Okay, great. And continuing to stay exactly where we are, I want you to interlace your hands together behind your head, pull your elbows back, your shoulders back. Stay here for a second. And the first question, and I want everybody to do this as well, hands interlaced together behind your head, is, Mimi, does that change the load, that tension in the right hip and hamstring at all? The answer could be yes, no, or I don't know.
Let me do it again.
It's really subtle.
Yeah, I do feel more tension across the left butt cheek now, like in that whole area, in the whole left glute.
So most people are going to find that when your hands are behind your head, there's a better weight distribution in your hips. Meaning, if I have a hip imbalance, if I feel one hip's tighter, I've got a chronic issue with the knee, there's more pressure on one foot, hands behind head almost immediately changes your weight distribution. Because think about a building, the upper part of a building. If there's a shoulder imbalance, one shoulder's higher than the other, maybe your upper body is slightly rotated, maybe you're slightly off to the side. Imagine the stress that places on these two columns of your legs. You could have incredibly healthy knees, hips, and ankles, but if you've got a little bit of a shifted upper body position, it doesn't need to be significant, but that little shift can put more weight into one hip than the other. And you feel this, oh, right hip's tight today. So you go launch this strategy of, how do I stretch the right hip? But the right hip's only tight, or you feel a little bit of tension because it's managing the upper body position. Hopefully that makes sense. And that could literally be an entire podcast.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm trying to understand is, what do your shoulders have to do in this very unseemingly kind of unpredictable, sometimes it's the left foot, sometimes it's the right Achilles, sometimes it's the left knee. What is Mimi's upper body having to do with this issue? Now, why I'm starting here is because I'm sure you focused very heavily on the lower body, very acutely on the left foot and the left knee and the right ankle, because that's what we do. When we have a problem, we look at the area that's making the most noise. And for many people, it's the areas that we never have issues with. I'm giving you hands behind your head assessment because you said your shoulders feel relatively good. And that's usually the first little marker, is that's where we're going to look first. because it's the areas that we never think we have problems with that are actually contributing to the areas that are making the most noise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So let's go a little bit further. All right. So now what I'd like you to do is shift your weight into your left leg, and you're just going to lift your right leg hip height. So lift the right knee hip height. Great. Now, when the ankle, knee, and hip work well, this is relatively a pretty functional thing. We could be here for a minute or two. 1 out of 10, how stable would you say you are? It's always hard to put numbers on this stuff. 10 being, I can do this for minutes. This feels really good. 1 is like, man, this feels a little wobbly.
Maybe like a 7.
Okay, so you feel about a 7 level of groundedness standing on the left side. Great.
Today, but when my foot is fired up, it's a 2, if that.
So the question that we have to ask, you can go ahead and relax the leg, is does your balance change because of the pain, or is the pain there because the balance changes? Is it that we lose stability and then we have dysfunction and symptoms show up? Or is the only reason why you're having a problem with that leg is when the symptoms show up? And that is one of the first questions that we need to answer with any kind of movement problems. Is the pain the cause of the body movement issue, or is it the body movement issue a cause of the pain? Now, what's really interesting about your story and most people's is they don't really have an event that they can point to. They just kind of wake up one day feeling like shit. Like, why does my back, why is it really problematic? And they notice that their movement is weird because of the pain. But I'm talking about what happens before the pain enters the picture. So, and I'm going to try to contain this without going off on rants. I wonder if you now had this assessment tool of, okay, let me just check my single leg balance on my left leg. Do I feel stable today? And if you don't feel stable, that's probably not the day to push heavy weights. It's probably not the day to go really hard in the gym because you're having instability. And if I can get you to look at your movement patterns as, oh, this doesn't feel that stable today, let me change my game plan a little bit so then we don't have to spend the next couple of days responding to pretty severe left foot pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So let's be fair, and let's also check your right side. So now shift your weight into your right leg and lift the left leg off the ground. Now, most people are going to have an immediate answer if this feels better, worse, or the same. What is your opinion putting weight on your right leg?
Feels way better. It just, this column feels way stronger in general every day, but including
More
today.
connected.
Yeah, I could probably stay here for 2 minutes, 3 minutes plus.
Yeah, so confidence sounds a lot higher on this side, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, go ahead and relax your leg. Well, no wonder why the right leg is probably feeling a little tight. The right hip was feeling a little tension because that's where your confidence lies. Okay. Now, the really important thing to understand, and everybody needs to understand, this is a simple assessment. Spending time just standing on one leg, well, that's what we do to walk. That is our primary source of locomotion. So anybody out there dealing with chronic issues, step number 1, as a human being who stands on 2 feet and walks on 2 feet, what is your single leg function like? And if there's a discrepancy, the larger that discrepancy, usually the more complicated and the more of a roller coaster their body feels on a daily basis because they're using the left side completely different than the right. Now, this might be a little bit of a special case because we've had a numerous amount of surgeries on the left knee that could be giving us that sensation. Let's try something. Humor me on this. Stand up, interlace your hands together behind your head. Now, shift your weight back into your left leg and lift your right leg off the ground. Does that feel more stable or less stable or the same?
It feels a little more stable.
Okay. Keep your hands behind your head. So I just heard that when you move both shoulders to a balanced position, your left leg is a little bit more stable. Even if there's 1% change, we have to ask the question, what do your shoulders have to do with your left leg stability? And that's going to then launch us into a really cool path. Now switch sides, stand on the right leg. And just to be fair and thorough, better, worse, or the same.
I didn't really feel any weakness on the side in the first place, so it kind of feels the same.
Okay, great. So no meaningful response on the right leg, but it sounds like that there was a little bit of response on the left leg. Okay, go and relax. Let's go and have a seat.
Okay.
Now, again, each one of those, just simple stuff like standing up, doing a single leg stand. These are all things that can start to pave the way out of this vicious cycle of how do I fix my knee? What are my knee exercises? Because we're learning information about your body. We're learning that you put a little bit more weight into your right leg standing. We're learning that when you bring both shoulders to the same position, you put a little bit more weight into your left leg. You're a little bit more stable. So with a really simple assessment, we can start to ask new questions, and new questions will lead to new answers. This is why anybody who has any problem with their body, yes, I hear you on there's an individual area that has a problem, but what else is going on? We have to start off doing some really simple assessments, because now the conversation in my mind is not, I wonder what knee exercises I can give Mimi so her left leg feels more stable. The conversation is now, I'm kind of noticing the right shoulder has been lower than the left shoulder today and during our last podcast. I wonder what the slight shoulder imbalance, how that's impacting the fluctuation of stability in her left leg. And I wonder if I can give her shoulder exercises to make her upper body more stable. I wonder if that's going to take the extra weight off the right leg and actually make her feel more confident and secure more consistently in the left leg. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah. So you've noticed just like visually, like, oh, I can tell that you said my right shoulder is a little lower, or
Yeah.
Interesting. Now I'm like checking myself out
Yeah.
here.
And I hate calling that out because every time I do, everyone
Yeah, I
immediately
know.
automatically adjusts, their
Well,
posture.
I can actually see it. Can you see it on my shoulders?
Yeah.
I can see this, like the top of the chair is showing here and the top of the chair is not showing here.
Yeah, totally.
Weird. Oh my gosh. Wow, good spot. I mean, I know this is what you do.
Yeah.
It's like we've had astrologers on the show and they know our
birth charts.
astrological charts like crazy, and they're just like completely nailing us everything, and we're like, oh my God, mind blowing. And you're probably like, yeah, this is super easy for me.
And there's something really cool happening here, which is a few things. First of all, you only know what you know. You're only aware of what you place attention on. There, in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that I've just showcased in my before and afters, and I've helped over 10,000 people resolve these issues, the common denominator in everybody is, oh, I didn't know that was happening in my body. Or maybe they stood to do an assessment photo and they felt like they were standing straight, yet their trunk was off. One shoulder was higher than the other. One leg was twisted. And I say this because there's now the third problem that goes on. So remember, the first one is the original issue, the dysfunction. Maybe it's the original injury, the surgery, probably the issue that's making the most noise. The second issue is the compensation. How is the rest of your body dealing with this issue or working around the issue? Now, the third problem is normalization. Because you've had this dysfunction and compensation, and they both have been working with each other to keep you moving and keep you as healthy and fit and happy as possible here, it's like the compass doesn't now point truly north. Right? It's maybe one shoulder sits lower. Maybe the right arm rotates in to the right shoulder drops to lift the left pelvis up to stabilize the left hip. It's all these little things that are happening that are so minute on a daily basis. But days, weeks, months, and years go by, we just normalize these problems. And all of a sudden, again, we're only focusing on what's barking at us the most, what's making the most noise. And so the interesting conversation is going to be is not only, hey, can we start to give Mimi some shoulder stuff? And I wonder how that makes her legs feel more stable. But maybe the event of why your left foot gives you problems, left knee or right Achilles, actually has nothing to do with the legs. Maybe it's the days that you train upper body the most. Maybe it's those extra set of lat pull downs or bicep curls or shoulder raises because we've got this shoulder imbalance. And that's what's slightly exacerbating the unlevel shoulders. Maybe that's what's shifting the trunk and throwing off the leg mechanics to make it feel like, I don't even know what I did. I didn't really train legs that hard. Why is my left foot in agonizing pain this morning? What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
These are the
Interesting.
questions. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because literally like 45 minutes, an hour ago, I was doing shoulder presses. So it'll be interesting over the next couple days to see if there's any, if I'm hearing you right. Not that I went for any PRs or whatever. I'm using pretty light dumbbells, but I did try to go, almost to failure. And it'll be interesting to see if over the next couple days I notice any other foot, Achilles, knee pain or weakness. If I'm hearing you right, that it could lead to that over the next few days.
Yeah. And here's the beautiful part. That is just my thesis of you.
Yeah.
Whether that is 100% pinpoint accurate or completely wrong, here's the beautiful part. What we know is your shoulders have something to do with your legs. And that was a very intuitive, just on the spot feedback system that your nervous system, that was an answer your body. That wasn't my opinion. There was a slight, I feel a little difference when I move my shoulders. That's something that your body is already giving you feedback on. So whether my thesis of your arm upper body day is having a significant impact on your legs, whether that's true or not, we are ultimately going down the same road, which is, well, let's get her legs and shoulders to work better together. Regardless if that's the root, the reaction, the original dysfunction, or the compensation. This is one of the main things that I need people to pull from my message here is before we go come up with specific theses and try to come up with these really, linear, small, granular ways to explain your body and the uniqueness of what's going on, let's master the basics. Let's get your shoulders to work better. Let's get your hips to work better. Let's get your knees and ankles and feet and hips and pelvis and shoulders, all of it to just understand how to flow a little bit better together. And in restoring your basics, let's watch what happens to the specifics of what you're feeling. Do you feel like you can train a little bit more consistently? Are you less hesitant when it comes time to load that left leg? Are you more wanting to do unilateral work because you feel just a little bit more of that subconscious confidence that this leg can actually handle load now? Regardless of your specifics and all of the people who are listening to these assessments, if we had 1,000 people listening, we will have 1,000 different experiences with our bodies. And the path forward is the same. Let's get you as a human being to balance your body and move better and watch what happens to your unique issues. And that is the beauty of making something very niche and complicated accessible and available for everybody.
Cool.
Well, I'm sold. So no, thank you for that explanation. And this is, really groundbreaking information for me because I've never once thought about my shoulders. But even sitting here looking on Zoom, I can tell that it looks like it's about a half inch or maybe a little bit more like lower. And so I've never put any of my mental energy towards how my upper body could be affecting my knee, foot, Achilles pain, whatever, and the functionality of that. And we are like in the health and wellness space. And Paul Chek, who's a like elite, fitness guru, coach, world class, is like our personal friend and mentor. And like he does these things too. And I still haven't. So like if there's people listening who are like, oh man, I can't believe we're in this space, and I still have never like really put that all together, which I think is, points to the specialness of what you do and how you assess people. And because I've been to a lot of chiropractors, physical therapists. No one has ever even like assessed my upper body at all. It's always focused on the lower, which I think is really common.
It's really common, and this is where we have to take a step back, because everything that you're saying, that's common sense, and that's intuitive. And that's also why I struggled for years. I broke my back. I wasn't paying people to look at my shoulders.
Yeah.
I didn't give a crap about my feet, nor my knees or my hips. My back is broken. Where are the people who specialize in the back? And years and years, not only after going down that road of focusing on the area that was making the most noise, my education, my credentials, my experience, all of it, years and years and years of it. And then finally I meet a guy in a grocery store who's like, we got to fix your left knee. And I'm like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about, man.
Yeah.
And it was so annoying how when we actually took a step back, not subjectively, but objectively, we did basic human movement assessments and we took photos. In every single photo, my left knee had torsion. It was twisting 30 something degrees externally. And what that means is the left knee was twisted out. I couldn't really bend my left knee. It was stiff, which means the left hip was externally rotated. And if the left hip is externally rotated, the left pelvis is going to tip anterior, which means it's going to drop lower than the right pelvis, which is then going to tip posterior. And now my lumbar spine is having to twist and rotate. The erector muscles, these large muscles that stabilize the spine, one of them is just going to always be tense to try to combat because it's in this position of being preloaded. No wonder why I couldn't release my back to save my life. Not because there was a problem with the muscle. My body was doing what it was ingeniously designed to do. It was the left knee that was causing the right back to be in a spasm for years. And it wasn't until I focused on the area that made no noise. Still to this day, I've never had knee pain. Yet, whenever my back feels funky, I look at my left knee and the answer is right in front of me. And it is so counterintuitive that this is the way we work. But my God, when you take a step back, you can just start to scientifically and objectively ask different questions that lead to different answers.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually like just another little insight into how amazing the body is. Like how the body is compensating for us for these little deficiencies or these little out of alignments. It's like, yo, I'm going to bump your hip out a little bit just to ensure that you're maintaining some level of, equilibrium. And that's really amazing that the body is doing that for us. And I know this seems frustrating, but it's also like, wow, what a incredible mechanism that this meat suit is, because it is doing that for us. And what if we join teams with it? What if we brought a little awareness that can support this machine that we get to exist in, and maybe we can work harmoniously with it. I'm even thinking about like, many of my friends and surely myself, as you fluctuate through various training goals and like, hey, I'm going to put some weight on, I want to hypertrophy a little bit. And then all of a sudden you get like a nagging injury. I've so easily chalked that up to overtraining because I'm just a notorious overtrainer. But at the same time, it's like, whoa, maybe if when I added that 10 pounds of muscle, or even not even muscle, sometimes if you're bulking, it's a little more than that. Perhaps it had nothing to do with the extra weight and more to do with the structure that now has to support a little more load in day-to-day operations that may have been compensating seemingly well enough without a particular size and weight. But once the frame's carrying a little bit more, that starts to nag. And so definitely something I'm going to focus in on as well.
Yeah. And so that leads me to two really important topics of conversation. The first is, I'm not saying overtraining injuries don't exist. They happen left and right like crazy. In my experience, what I've found is overtraining is actually not the thing that causes the injury. It's that this underlying compensatory pattern Once that gets strong enough, the problem exists, right? Because let's use Mimi as a case study here. Okay, we know you feel more grounded standing on the right leg, less grounded on the left. I'm sure at some level of volume and stress and stimulus, there's like a sweet spot where you can be consistent, you can show up, you can manage this problem from it going into a flare up. There's a sweet spot here. But with a leg stability disparity, meaning one side's more stable than the other, there has to be a certain moment, a threshold where you start lifting more and you start lifting more. Now the right leg is getting stronger and tighter and more stable because it's doing more work. It's being asked to do more work every time we do bilateral and, for the most part, unilateral motions. So at some point, this maybe subtle instability disparity now becomes drastic. And it's not that you're overtraining, it's that disparity gets bigger and stronger, and then you have to dial it back. Because maybe right now the difference is 10%. And that means you can have a really good quality of life. But the stronger you get, maybe that difference is 15 to 20%. That might not seem meaningful, but that could be the difference of you waking up with the explosive right Achilles pain or not. So it's more about the body that we're bringing into the activity and strengthening that body's problem than it is actually just putting more load and we've overtrained.
Yeah.
So I think that's topic number one. The second thing is, here's the mindset switch. And I might say this a lot. Hey, if you get one thing from me today, have it be this. This is another time I'm going to say this. What if your problem, anybody listening to this, what if your problem is not actually the problem? What if that's your body's solution? Your body's not dumb. It's not just saying, hey, let's go blow out our back today and let's create a tight right hip. Mimi, the right hip was a little tighter today. That wasn't the problem. That was your body's solution to dealing with the trunk position that's offset. So we wage war on the things that we feel that we don't want to feel and say, hey, that prevents me from being intimate. That prevents me from working out. That feeling, that sensation is the problem. But again, what if it's actually your body's solution to what's not actually happening in your body that needs to be happening? And when you reframe it, you stop attacking what you feel and you become an investigator and you explore with a little bit of a different mindset, and you bring a little bit more grace and a little bit more patience and a little bit more empathy into, oh my God, right hip's tight today. Body, thank you so much for doing what you need to get me to show up this morning.
Yeah.
Now let me find a way to support you so you don't have to go hunker down all damn day long.
Right. Yeah. It's gratitude. It's gratitude for your body's infinite wisdom that you're not even aware of. It's like, it's crazy how much information your body is gathering all the time that's not through your necessarily five senses, and compensating or picking up the slack or adjusting, and you have no freaking idea. It's like we could talk for days about how, our bodies are infinitely more intelligent than maybe our minds are, but I might be after we stop recording, I might ask you for some potential shoulder exercises.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of dovetails into my next question or series of questions would be, I would imagine this assessment is relatively applicable across the board, whether you've got blown ACLs or whether you're dealing with a back issue. And so that's kind of this awareness assessment step. What are you seeing? And obviously it's probably going to depend on person to person and hotspot to hotspot, but what does action after the assessment look like? And maybe if it's easy to describe, 2 or 3 traditional pain points, or if we want to use Mimi's knee again, what do you do about it? Right? Like, I think it's like, oh my God, awareness. But then it's like, okay, most folks are going to be ready to fix it or correct this.
Yeah. And so, first up, we did 2 things. We did standing and a single leg stand. There are 6 more basic movement assessments because I really want people to have an understanding. Some people who did that, it's like, I don't feel anything standing or single leg. Okay, cool. Well, what about squatting? What about bending forward? What about twisting? What about core stability? So there's a couple more layers to let's get a little bit more of a complete picture as to what's going on here. Let's say you did one assessment and you're like, hell yeah, I know I need this. Let's go. Or maybe you need to do more, but you finally get there. The path moving forward, the structure of that path is the same for everybody. How you move through that structure is going to be unique through your problem. So let's talk about the higher up structure. So number one, step one, after we assess, I can't give Mimi exercises right now because any exercise I give her, she's going to do it with that problem. Most people just want to get straight to work. And this is why these problems seldom change for people, because we start to put work in the body, but you can only resolve these issues at the level that your nerves and muscles communicate. And right now, there's a disparity between right and left. So step one, which is the most crucial step, let's down regulate. Let's calm down this problem. Usually static, usually relaxing positions. For example, let's put Mimi on her back with both legs over a couch or a chair. Let's get her right leg and left leg in the same damn position at the same time. Let's interlace her hands so she's lying on her back, both hands interlaced behind her head. She's probably going to feel one shoulder's tighter than the other. Let's begin to relax this unlevel shoulders and just get her neuromuscular system to understand it can be calm and both sides of the body can be in the same position at the same time. And once it doesn't need to be this huge, long, drawn out process, that could be 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. Let's first get you to calm this problem down. Once the nervous system down regulates, we enter that parasympathetic state, the neural activity slows down. Then we can intelligently, okay, now let's get both hips to work together. Both hips together at the same time. Good. Now let's get both shoulders to work together. And even though I don't believe in isolation, right? Nothing works in the body, nothing works alone, nothing fails alone, nothing gets injured alone, nothing heals alone. Mimi still has to spend time. We know that there's an imbalance. Let's get both hips to work better together. And it could be something as simple as squeezing a yoga block or a foam roller between your knees, lying on your back in that legs over chair position. Neurologically, let's activate both legs and adductors and hip flexors at the same time. Neurologically, lying on our back, let's just start to do basic arm pullovers to restore the gliding mechanism of both shoulders. And let's get the head of the humerus to just start moving the same on the right as it is the left. And once we do these really basic, this is like step two, these really basic motor recruitment patterns. So the right muscles start moving the joints in the right way again. Then it's time for step three, which is now let's get more muscles, more compound motion. Because you are a human being, you need to move. And when you move, your entire body moves. So now let's get more of you to understand how to move together while keeping compensation tame, right? So most of the stuff is going to be floor-based because, as you alluded to earlier, there are maybe things that are going on that maybe you aren't aware of. So I can't have you do open chain motion. We can't go standing. That gives you the chance to shift and twist and rotate again. Most of the work is going to be on the ground because the ground is like the equalizer. It's the training wheels. It's going to help you almost kind of put both sides of the body in a position of more support, which means you're going to have a chance of doing less things weird. So let's learn what compound motions are on the ground. And once your brain and muscles and joints kind of get that, it's time to stand up. Now let's work with gravity. Let's get a little bit more motion. Let's get dynamic movement patterns. So the process is the same. The structure, the pillars, the steps are the same with how we take this long-standing, complicated dysfunction, compensation, and just awareness issue. The pillars and steps are the same, but how we go through each step is probably going to look a little different based on what helps your body move and feel its best. And this is why my program is a minimum a year long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking like as you're speaking that I love the explanation of the floor being the equalizer, and it makes so much
Yeah.
sense. I've never really thought about that. I'm just thinking, for my situation or anyone listening who's like, okay, let's get on the floor and do these things and do these like kind of light, gentle movements. Do I need to, should I pause my lifting that I'm doing 3 to 4 times a week? What are your thoughts there? Am I doing more damage just by doing, basic deadlift, squat, lunge, those kind of functional movements?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm first going to answer that emotionally because we are emotional creatures. I remember what it was like to literally have a broken back and be told not to do anything. And cool, that checks a box, like maybe that's best physiologically, but mentally and emotionally, what am I just going to lay down on my back and look at the
Dude,
ceiling fan all
hell,
day?
that's hell. That's
Yeah.
just a torture chamber.
It's hell. So my first piece is actually why most of us do fitness in the first place, which is mental health. Obviously, aesthetics, of course, that's cool. It's great. Love it. Health benefits, but it's also a huge mental health thing. So the last thing I want you doing for the sake of balance and optimal biomechanics is to erode your mental health.
Right. Yeah.
Just to go resolve these. And I don't even think that's the best way to do it. So number one, please keep doing what you're already doing. Not only for your mental health, but your workouts are like your litmus test.
Mm-hmm.
If you start my work and stop yours, those are two variables that you've just changed.
Yeah.
In kind of a complicated problem. If you're better, is it because of my work? As much as I'd love to say so, maybe, but I don't know. Or is it maybe just because you stopped doing your workouts? If your goal is to stop doing workouts and feel better, stop working out and just do this program. If your goal is to learn how to work out and take care of your body long term and be fit and as healthy as possible and get that release in the gym, it makes no sense to actually stop doing the thing that you're going to be doing long term.
Yeah.
I say do your workouts. Let's probably shy away from 1 rep max. Let's not fry our central nervous system,
Yeah.
because we're
I'm
just
not
going to
doing that
use.
anyways.
Yeah, good. Most people are.
Yeah.
And let's actually not go change your workouts. Let's not go learn new exercises. Let's not go all of a sudden change up the structure. I want you to do everything that you're currently doing and heal through addition. No more healing through subtraction and taking away things from your life. Add my program into your world and let's watch. Are you a little less cautious with unilateral motion now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, get a little stronger, or my recovery times are going down? I feel like I can kind of hit the gym a little bit more consistently now. My left foot or my right foot is not wanting to explode anymore. Now we can understand, adding these motions is really making a big impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know your workouts, you know your body, you know your range of motion and your endurance and your strength. My God, how powerful it would be if you added this into your world and you started to notice your gym mechanics, lifts, metrics just started to change. That is the most powerful data you could probably accumulate from this program.
Oh, well, selfishly and not so secretly, I'm really glad you answered that way, because the last thing I wanted to hear was like, yeah, actually you need to stop lifting in general, because I get so much joy out of it. I get so much joy out of like feeling strong, and moving something, doing something hard at the beginning of the day that really sets the tone for basically everything else in my day is kind of easier than what I just did in the gym. So I'm very glad that you answered that way. And it makes logical sense as well.
A good trainer, let's even say like for a bodybuilder style or a physique competitor, they know that long distance cardio isn't going to be supportive of someone who's trying to hypertrophy, right? But they also, a good trainer will know that if that's a critical component to the psychology of the bodybuilder or the physique competitor, that cardiovascular exercise, maybe long distance cardio, should still be a critical component to their overall path, because it will have so many emotional, psychological benefits. And so I love
Yeah.
that you say that as well, because like, and everybody listening, that is the sign of a good therapist, is that someone who can say,
Yeah.
hey, what's really important to you
Yeah.
and your well-being? You know your body very, very well. And there are going to be components to this that I'm not going to be able to see. So thank you for the information. Let's incorporate this into a path that's consistent with the outcome goals that you have in mind, but also going to be able to, support where you're at psychologically.
Yeah, it's key. And, it was the biggest missing key. Like I said, the mindset, the emotional stuff. It was everybody was just trying to manage my pain, but nobody was trying to manage me as a person. And I didn't even understand how to do that. So so this is about structure. So Mimi, this is not about taking away the things that you love and that keep you healthy, fit, mentally, emotionally, and physically, but okay, can we make the body you're bringing into the gym a little better? Let's do a routine before the workout. And at night, when you go hit the weights hard, when you're doing the things that you love to do, now we have okay, let's calm things down at night. We have a little bit of a strategy to help us cope with whatever's going on in your body. And that means that you now have tools and you're in the driver's seat and you're in control. And this is the skill that I want to give people.
Yeah. It's so great. I love that you touch on the nervous system and everything, because you just can't overlook it with really any type of healing anything. It comes back to the nervous system. And I think that also the nervous system is almost like the gut, where it's like, yeah, gut health is really important. Nervous system health and nervous system regulation is really important. But it's just like this looming, like big umbrella with a giant question mark underneath. And you're like, where do I even freaking start? And what is the nervous system really? And what is gut health really? It's just like so broad. People just like, kind of stay away because it's like, it's just confusing.
What has really sunk in for me is there's a photo that goes around like fitness and wellness Instagram or social media of the nervous system, like stripped of all its parts except for the actual nerves and the vagal nerve and the skull and the spine. You're like, holy shit, that's in everything. Oh my God. It's like all the way to my fingertips.
And I never think about it.
Right. And that visual,
everywhere.
It's everywhere, dude. And it's like this, massive bell that can be rung, good or bad.
Yeah.
And it impacts freaking everything. And so it's huge learning for me. And then there's so much more to learn. But in the last couple of years, it's been like, oh yeah, I'm ignoring this.
Yeah,
definitely ignoring the communication that I'm giving my nervous system through the decisions that I make with my fitness protocols. And it's impacting every lane of my life.
It's king. And the really important thing to understand is that the nervous system is so critically important. And where things tend to get really weird for most people is that we hear that and we then do the Western mind thing, which is, okay, problems with my nervous system. What are the supplements? Nervous system, neurologists.
Yeah.
We did not form as individual systems. Everything became interconnected in the womb. This is why it took so long. This is gestation. Every system works together. No one system fails alone. I've never met somebody with a healthy muscle and an unhealthy nerve, or a healthy nerve and an unhealthy muscle. Nor have I met somebody with fascia that works really well, but the muscle doesn't work. Or it's all interconnected. And there is so much beauty when you actually no longer chase individual systems, but you look at it as, oh, if I can lay on my back and get my arm to move overhead, I'm hitting the joints, tendons, ligaments, nerves, fascia, and muscles all together simultaneously. And when you can be very methodical and conscious and aware of your motion, you are targeting every system, even the lymphatic system. It's all movement. It's all connected. Where things get really tricky is we think we blame the muscles as the problem, or we blame the fascia or the tendon it doesn't work like that, but we think it does.
Yeah.
And so begins the multi-year long search of stuff that usually ends in dead ends.
Really good reminder. Really good. Because it's even my default mode is to be like, fucking nervous system.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go address my nervous system directly.
Same.
On that note, I think it may be a great place to end because like I know most people listening, probably everyone listening
Has a
knows
nervous system.
has a nervous system, of course,
I
but like
hope.
knows that like whether it be structural imbalances or movement hindrances or whatever it is, or just the freaking like outside world, the 2024 election, or like all of these things that are just like in our purview that maybe could or relationship unrest or financial stress or whatever it is. Like our nervous systems all need some love. And
Yeah.
so, do you have a couple tips that you could throw our listeners' way? Anyone listening, like say they're like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed in an hour. What can I do? What can I engage in? How can I support my nervous system before I go to bed at the end of a long day? Is there something that anyone could benefit from that you could share with us? Maybe like one or two things.
Yeah. So, what I shared today and our first time that we talked, which is lay down on your back, put both legs over a chair. You spend so much time in stimulation, so much time responding to stimulus. It is a very stressful world. And this is why most of us are caught up in that sympathetic. We're literally all day long. Cortisol levels are through the roof. Fight, flight, freeze. Most of us don't fight, so we just flight or freeze. That's just how we live. So let's dismantle that and come down to the ground, put both legs over a couch or a chair, arms out to the side or behind your head, 5 to 10 minutes a day. No stimulation, no responding, no activation. It's actually taking the work out of the body. Learning how to be idle,
Mm,
learning how to rest is the opposite side of movement. It's the same coin. It's we can't learn to move and be strong if we also don't understand how to be idle. It
mm,
is an evolutionary mechanism that our bodies are wired to understand how to do to conserve calories, to repair the body. And most of us never spend any time on that flip side of the coin. Even our rehab and recovery is aggressive. It's hard. It's high. Coming down to the ground, legs over a couch or a chair, 5, 10 minutes, put on a podcast, put on some soft, gentle music, and just watch how like your intuition, your body awareness, your body IQ, you just start to feel those little things that you don't feel because you're just always moving, you're always responding, you're in your head, you're in your way. That quality time in your body every day is a great start. And most people are going to find that was an impossible ask because they're so used to going, going, going. And now I have to bring all that inertia to rest. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
But that's why you're having a hard time sleeping because you're going from inertia to nothing. And most people don't
mm,
understand how to bridge into that being idle
mhm,
mode. And it
mhm.
takes time and it takes practice. And, when you avoid stillness, I forget the quote, but it's something like, show me how you are in stillness and I'll show you who you are. You
Mm,
know, I'm asking
interesting.
people to practice stillness and that's really hard for a lot of people.
Mm,
So
Yeah.
my one tip is to practice stillness. And
mm.
I'm actually asking you to do nothing. And
Yeah.
and that's where we start.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really
Oftentimes
good.
I think that the answer is not us to do more, it's actually to do less. And I tell the women that I work with that every day. It's like you're probably doing all the right things, and that's the problem.
Yeah, do less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to get an influx of folks saying,
Yeah.
hey, I've got this issue. You think this will work for this? Hey, I've got, my foot or my shoulder or my back or my neck. And what is the best way to reach out to you and your team? Get involved in Pain Academy. If it's not a direct conversion, maybe if there's a little bit of a resource for people
Mhm.
to find out more. How can we support our audience in getting in touch with you, learning more, and potentially participating in Pain Academy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the easiest way to take the next step, if you're just in action mode and you just want to start making an impact, is go to painacademy.net. You can either get started with a free routine or I've got a very affordable 5-day program to just get you started on what this is. For those people who are not in action mode, just follow me online. There's so much free content that I put out. Chances are something is going to make an impact. Sign up for my email list. I give a lot of educational content on there. And I want to remind everybody here that I wish I had this glass ball and I could say, yes, this works for that. Yes, I'm very biased. I've seen it work for incredible things. But at the end of the day, the only way you can know if this works is if you do it. And you have to trust. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to trust that your body can get better. And if you can do that, the only way to find out if this can be helpful is by actually doing it and seeing firsthand for yourself. Can this make the impact that I want it to make? There's nobody that can say yes or no with 100% certainty. I am under the guise of let's explore and let's find out. And that is where the true answers that you're looking for, that's the only way we can get to them.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great. Can you share your I assume you do a lot of, you said education, it's on Instagram, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's your handle?
At Pain Academy.
Pain Academy. Okay, cool. Awesome. This has been just a wildly fascinating conversation, and I'm personally obviously very grateful for your assessment and your insights. I'm definitely going to be looking into Pain Academy and just really thinking hard on that and what realistically do I have in the tank to how important is this to me to figure out at 34 such that the rest of my life could be a little bit more smooth, whether I do stem cells or not in the future. But I'm really grateful for your wisdom and the time that you've put into just another way of assessing pain and injury and movement patterns. And obviously, it's very, very needed in the world. And so thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us and our listeners.
Thank you for saying that. My last piece of wisdom for you is I hate running. I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd become an ultra marathon runner, traveling the world to do these races. I say this with love to you because I probably could have lived with it. Probably could have lived with my back issue. And I got good enough to have a quality of life. I got good enough to be okay. And I can work and play with my kid. And I was good enough to exist. No problem. What I want to share with you is there are versions of yourself that you have yet to meet. There are passions of yours that you don't even know are passions yet. And preventing problems that,
Yeah.
whatever.
No one's passionate about preventing problems.
Yeah. I'm going to really need to spend 15 minutes a day to prevent a problem. The reframe is, I wonder what else I can do.
Yeah.
And if you're ready to meet those future versions, again, this version of myself, there is no way on God's green earth I ever thought this would exist. 50 miles in Patagonia, what is going on right now?
Wow.
And I never in my wildest dreams could imagine this version of myself. But as I took care of my body, screw preventative stuff, I just started to feel better. And in that better capacity, I started saying yes to things I never would have said yes to, whether it's social events, whether it's activities or hobbies or workouts. And this is what happens when you learn how to fully take care of your body, is it just opens up things that I promise you are not even on your radar right now. Even if there's deep fulfillment, when you really start to show up and your capacity increases, that fulfillment leads you someplace. It doesn't stay stagnant. And that could be way more exciting to do this than preventative.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, snaps for that. Totally feel that absolutely resonates. No one's passionate about preventing problems.
I'm not, and I do this for a living, and I think it's the biggest waste of time.
Yeah, right. It's so true. Well, thank you for that. Very inspiring, and I know our listeners enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and we're grateful for you and your work. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you both. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Vinny.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Check the show notes for all the applicable links. We'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.